Hello and welcome back. Today is day 13 of our graphing quadratics unit. We will be having some fun with quadratic functions today. We have a challenging Desmos activity for you. There is no handout for today's lesson, just enjoy the Desmos activity. Oh yeah, it's that time again. We have some math problems here and we need you to do them now. Pause the video, complete the problems, and return to the video when you're done. All right, let's go over this do now. Simple question, we've got a graph here, and the questions are, what is the domain, what is the range? Now remember, we need to figure out what is domain again. And I'm just going to define it as the all possible x values. Okay, simple definition, but what we mean is, so domain, think of domain as all your possible x values. So domain should be going like this direction horizontally. All right, range is going to be, well, if domain is all possible x values, then range will be all possible y values. Okay, so then y values are up and down, so then you should think about range as going up and down, so vertically. All right, so again, when we look at graphs, they're asking us to look at this and say, okay, what is the domain? What is the range of this graph? All right, now before we answer this question, we're going to use a little help here. And Mr. B created this, and I want to show you what this does, and then hopefully that'll help you understand what is domain and what is range. All right, so we're going to go to this app. We're going to app this real quick. So we're on the GeoGebra app. Now let's take a look. So this line segment F over here, that's the line that we're talking about. That's the graph that we're talking about. And our question is, what is the domain and what is the range of that? Now, I love this little graph because when you look at this graph, we can actually move it. And remember what I said earlier, that domain is your x values. So when you can, this will help you see that we can line up the x values. Let me make this a little smaller. So my domain is going to go from, it goes from -5 to 6. So those are the only possible x values for this graph. And now range is the possible y values. So let's drop this down. And we can see that range is up and down. So again, what is my range from this graph? It's going from -3 all the way up to -1. All right, and we can check our answers, and it's written right there on top so you can see. And again, it depends on what math class you're in. The higher math class you can use, we can write this in set notation also, okay? But for this class, we're still using inequality notation, so that's what we're going to use for now. So is that my answer? Yes, it is. So let's try another one. So there's my graph up top. So my domain, look at, I just have to make this a little wider. So my domain is going to go from -3 all the way up to 6. That's where the graph stops. It doesn't continue anymore. It doesn't go anywhere lower than 3, and it doesn't go anything higher than 6. And my range, let's move this up a little bit. And my range is going to be from 6 to 7. Okay, so that's all we're doing. Let's check answer. Are we correct? Yes, we are. We'll do one more. So on this one, what's our domain? Well, our smallest x value that we use will be 0. So we're going from x equals 0 all the way up to 3. That was nice. I didn't have to change it. And for this graph, my range goes from 2 all the way up to 6. So I need you to start getting into your mind, like think of domain like this, like little rectangles talking about the x-axis and then the other one going horizontally. All right, so let's go back to the problem and let's answer our question now. Question, so what is the domain for this graph? It's like this little squiggly graph. Well, domain, think of it like the little rectangle. We're going from here all the way to here. So that's my domain. This is my domain, anywhere in between here. And so what values will that take? Well, this is going to be at 2, and this is going to be at 8. How do we know it's 2 and 8 and not the 3 and the 5? Well, remember, this is your x-axis, so we need the x value from these coordinates. So we're going to be using the x value from that coordinate. All right, so what's my domain for this problem? It's going to be all values greater than or equal to 2 and less than or equal to 8. So there's my domain. That's what we're looking for this problem. All right, range. Remember, range is your y values. So think of vertically. So we're going to go from here, and this is going to map over to here. So what values are those? Well, this is the y-axis, so we should be looking at the y coordinates. So we should be looking at the other coordinates. So this will go from 3 to 5. So that's going to be my range. My range is going to be from here to here. Okay, so hopefully that GeoGebra app helped us out. So this is going to be x has to be greater than or equal to 3, less than or equal to 5. Okay, so that's what we're doing. And we're going to need this concept for today's lesson. Really, we only need the domain, but I wanted to show both of them because shouldn't do one without the other. All right, so we're going to be using Desmos today. We have a little fun activity. So take a minute, pause the screen right now, and log into student.desmos.com and use your access code. All right, and then so we'll give you a few minutes and I'll give you a few seconds to log in, and let's get started. Oh, here's the activity. So let's marble slide. Here's the goal. Get all the stars, get to know parabolas, click launch and see what you mean. So when you do this activity, you're gonna click launch, and what do you see happening? Oh, pretty easy. So your job is to make sure when you drop the purple marbles that they end up picking up all the stars. Okay, so that's what you'll be doing this activity. All right. Now you're going to be faced with some problems and some challenging problems that you have to do. So I'm going to click on the next button and let's look at the next one. So now change the sign of one number in the row below to fix the marble slide. So they only want you to change one of those numbers. So I have a whole bunch of numbers. I got 0.1, I have -2, I have a square, I have 8. Let me launch this and see what happens. So as you see, I don't get any of the marbles. All right, so we need to change one number. So what have we learned about quadratics? We know this should be concave down. So if we make this a negative value, and then we launch, now perfectly we end up getting the marbles. All right, so and they're gonna get harder as you go along. So again, make sure you're reading the directions and then figure out what they want you to do. So let's go to the next one. This is a good slide right here. This one tells you if you mess things up. So if you're trying and you just keep messing up and you're like, okay, let me start all over. The way you do it is you click on the wrench, and then once you click on that little wrench right there, hit reset, and it'll reset it back to the original prompt. So maybe you change it or you delete it on accident or it just goes away. So this is how you reset the screen back to the original screen. Okay, so for example, let me give you an example of that. So here's our next problem. Let's say you accidentally deleted your equation and now you're launching and you're like, okay, nothing's happening. Now, in order to get it back, click on the wrench, hit reset, and now we're back to the original graph. All right, I'm gonna drop it right now, and what do you see? My parabola doesn't get any of the marbles. All right, and there's something else you should see here. You see the little in the brackets there, it has an x is less than 5. Well, you see the parabola there? What you should notice is that's called a domain restriction. So I'm going to type that in, x is less than 5. That means they only want the graph to go from anything smaller than -5. So we can see the graph only in this section. All right, so your job is going to be to think about, it says change the row below to fix the marble slide. So let's say we change this row. Let's say I don't know, let's say we say, how do I need the graph to move over a little bit. So what if I change this to a +2? Ooh, now when I launch, now I kind of pick up a couple marbles, but now I don't see, it doesn't launch. I need to launch the marbles. So how about we change the domain restriction? So now instead of going all the way to 5, maybe we want to go to 4. So let's change it on the graph to 4. So I'll delete it to a 4, and now launch and see what happens. And you see, I'm going to change this one also so that way you can see the graph should only go up to 4. It shouldn't go any higher than that because it says x is less than 4. So when you're doing these activities, you're going to have to pay attention to the domain restriction. That'll change your graph. So maybe you want to go a little bit smaller. Maybe we'll change this one to a 3. So I'll change my domain. So that means I don't want to go all the way to 4. I want my graph to go to 3. And now let's launch it. Let's see. Okay, still not work. Actually, let me delete this because I think I got stuck on that red part. Ah, there we go. Okay. So as you can see, it's still not working, but your job will be to tweak this equation around a little bit and to find all the marbles. Okay. So good luck with these activities. Some of them are really challenging. Um, I know I've done some of these and they take a while, but good luck with this. Nice little review of what we've been doing this chapter.